Hey Alyssa, so I went through this in advance, which isn't what I'd done before, but I want to make sure I was giving you like more thought out notes than just, you know, on the fly notes. Anyways, thank you for rotating her head. I think I went through and made some notes where I think it works. I think it works throughout most of this actually. The only place that like doesn't really work for me is at the beginning. So I made it 3/4 notes and with the X, meaning like I don't think it works quite here. So maybe we can go more profile. I also drew an arrow for some reason, as if you didn't know where the head was. So sorry about that. But I don't think it works there, but I think kind of when you get in this space, it doesn't bother me. I think that feels nice and it opens up the face a little bit for us to see both of them. So that's my opinion. If your opinion differs or varies, that's fine. But thank you for humoring me and trying it. It's really up to what you think, if it's working or not. But I think kind of like in this zone, I feel good about things. And I feel like we see a lot, even that little sliver more that we see of her face, I think is going to be useful for us to be able to kind of like act with. All right, so here my thoughts is I think she should come in almost already at the full extension, because I feel like we just hit it a little bit and then like have to pull back on it right away. And there's something that felt a little odd to me, how she's still in full extension here and pulls back kind of at the same time with her torso and body. So maybe a way to offset that is to get the arm starting to bend here before the torso pulls back. So that's what this drawing is about. And then maybe when she pulls back, she can pull back more, like almost all the way to her chest or something, rather than just kind of leaving it out here. I feel like let's get her back and contained. Not a huge note. I'll do a second back and talk about the mom in a bit, but I'll focus on the little girl here. This arm pose feels like really unnatural, and I know this bag that she's carrying is massive compared to her like body size. Like it's really thick and huge, and maybe that's an important part of the story. I don't know. Maybe not. There's one thing I'm curious about. It's kind of like the time period of all this, because the set seems to be very like almost Victorian, and the mom is dressed in a very kind of Victorian way, but the child seems almost like a 1920s, 1930s like newspaper sales. I don't know. Anyways, but then in the beginning there's like the bomb and superheroes. So I was just curious about that, what your thoughts are. But anyways, so this is like getting the arm in a more neutral position or a more natural kind of like relaxed position, but I know the bag is large. So that made me question like, well, do we need the bag? And then that started me thinking down that path. Another potential arm pose is maybe she grabs onto the strap and kind of like holds on to her bag. Maybe there's more comic books in her bag. Maybe there's a ton in there, and so she's trying to kind of protect what she has left. I'm not sure. Anyways, yeah, this arm pose just feels like there's just something unnatural about it. It just kind of lacks a little bit of appeal. So maybe we can do better with that arm. So this, like, the torso rotates forwards as the hands kind of, especially the screen right hand, is kind of like dropping. So it feels like it's kind of all moving together. And then also she like anticipates back again and drops again. So that made me wonder if maybe we don't need this torso rotation forward, but we keep the arms kind of getting active and into this almost like an anticipation to the anticipation, you know? So that's what this note is about with the X and the rotation. I'm not saying don't have anything in her torso or body, but maybe we save it for the next part of the beat, so it's not like forward, back, forward. We emphasize like the more important part of her line, which looks like this is probably the most important part. And I have some arm notes here. Like she goes up, and I like that these aren't twinned. I think that's great, but I'm feeling like it's a bit, I don't know. like kind of like super broad exaggerating gesture, kind of like what people would more stereotypically associate with, you know, like Italian stuff where they gesture really, really large. So maybe we can tone that down by kind of keeping it like closer in here to the body, these like this anticipation of the gesture. And then maybe instead of going at a 90-degree angle forward to the mom, it can be more down and open. And I don't really want like the hands to go off the frame like I've drawn it. I'm not sure if there's a way to keep the hands in the frame. If they go a little bit off frame, it's okay. But yeah, like I like the palms up here like you have it, but maybe just a little bit more like, this feels more, a little bit more beggar. Not like she's asked, like this almost makes me feel, the way you have it, makes me feel like she's asking for like the comic book back or something. Like, I don't know. And then, yeah, get some offset in the hands from the chest. I made a note about that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I kind of like how the kid pulls back here, but I think maybe we can push it a little bit more. It's up to you, but my thoughts are maybe we can actually like kind of angle the torso back. Like I know that later the mom kind of almost hits the kid, and I don't know if they've been hit before or whatever, but maybe we can pull back on this a little bit more. And again, figure out what to do with this arm because it just kind of dangles in a way. So that was the thought here. Is there a way to get it a little bit more recoil, a little bit more distance between them too, which is a visually nice way to say there's emotional distance to them. I feel like I always kind of want to know what the arm is doing, the one that we're not seeing. I know here there's like a little hint of a thumb and stuff there, but maybe we can figure out a way to pose the other arm. You know, maybe they go back on their bag to hold that strap like you're kind of doing before. I don't know, but I feel like it's important that we at least like give a little description as far as like what that arm's doing. Let's see. Yeah. So I think the 3/4 here works really well for me. I totally believe like they're both sort of 3/4 to each other, and I'm believing it. Maybe too, some of the stuff of helping with the arm and the pose isn't just to like rotate it back, but I think even in my drawing I kind of rotated it where we're seeing like a bit more of the center line of the chest, you know what I mean? So that's gonna kind of match like this head angle a little bit more, where it's not like the body's in profile but just the head is not. And again, I'm not always trying to send you backwards. You know, we want to make progress and stuff, but maybe we can get it a little bit more rotated where the middle of the chest kind of matches what the head is doing, so it opens up the body just a little bit to the camera. I think that might serve you well. All right, now I'm going to back up so we can talk about the mom a little bit. I'm glad you put the comic in here, because now we can see here it's like super flat and almost invisible when the mom turns. So maybe rotate the hand and how it's like holding the comic book, like this is the thumb maybe, or something, so that we see it. We see it like come into view, because it's like here we can't see it. Even though, you know, when I look at your piece overall, we know that she picked it up and all that. But I think it's okay that we can't see it, although maybe we can, you know, just sneak it out. Oops, sorry. We can sneak it out a little bit more, where we do kind of see it, and then when she turns, it drops, right? Like I want to, having an edge on like this, obviously, I'm sure you know, is not ideal because it becomes almost like invisible. So I think have her kind of drop it and hold it by her side, even if, I don't know how low it should go, like if her arm is kind of relaxed, you know, even if it goes like this, I feel gives us a little bit more contrast for when she lifts it up and gestures with it, which makes that gesture a little bit more potent, a little stronger. So this would be kind of behind her body, where she's not saying, like right now she's not kind of like presenting the comic book. It's almost like she's more focused on the daughter kind of betraying or disobeying her, you know, rather than like presenting the comic book to her. Because then that's going to make like raising it up kind of a little bit more of a stronger gesture. So this is like where it would start to drop down to becoming casual. And I don't want you to go down, up, down again in too short of a time period, but maybe it's nice to kind of like have a little beat where it's de-emphasized. I guess this arm doesn't need to be that straight. Again, don't follow my drawings verbatim. I'm just trying to kind of like communicate ideas about what I'm thinking. So it's just a communication tool. But something about this kind of feels nice to me. And then when she raises up, she really raises it up here. It's like really high and really far away from her body. So maybe we can tone that down. I'm not sure exactly where the right place is, but maybe like a little bit closer, because when we raise it up in a way, it's going to draw the audience's attention. This is the audience's attention. It's going to draw it away from her face, which is kind of where we want the audience to be looking, right? Not necessarily at the comic book, because they're not going to get any more information from looking at the comic book, but this is where we're going to be trying to give the information to our audience. Like, how does the mom feel about this comic book? You know, why is this a big deal that the kid has a comic book at all? So if we can keep the comic book maybe like a little closer to the mom's face, it's going to be a little less in competition with the mom's face, and we may be able, maybe even this is too high, you know, maybe we even want to, I don't know, I would have to get in there and play with it and then, you know, see how it feels. So, but that's your job, that's not my job. So maybe, I don't know how high we want it to get or whatever. Maybe it doesn't have to be a huge anticipation. Maybe it can be kind of a smaller anticipation. I don't know. But then when we present it, yeah, maybe this is even still too high. I'm not sure. Figure that out. I trust you. But this, she presents it forward, and that's going to be like a big or bigger gesture. You know, here in your reference, your arm is kind of like foreshortened, you know, which keeps the comic book like closer to your silhouette and stuff, and like closer to your face, where here, I don't know, maybe there's something to be said to like bumping it back a little bit. One of the things that happens with this is that it kind of like is tangenting here, and I kind of feel like we can keep separation between the mom and the comic book. So part of that may be pulling the comic book back a little bit, but it may also be kind of just like moving the mom overall throughout the whole piece like a little bit screen right. So that's what that big green circle and arrow is about. Just to like keep some distance between, like, I know that we're not leaning her forward here, but we are eventually leaning her forward, and it would be nice if there's, I mean, right here we have some distance between there, but that's still a little bit of tension. I feel like the mom, especially if she didn't want the kid to have the comic book, may draw it like away from the kid. You know what I mean? Like keep this thing away. This is like drugs. This is like teeth rotting candy, or however the mom thinks about it, like however strongly, you know, she feels strongly that these things are like planting evil ideas into her kid's head. So maybe it's okay to like pull it back here and keep some distance between. But whatever, I think whatever we're doing, we got to solve like tangents and overlaps like this. I don't think there's a need for them, and I think it's like visually a little bit more confusing or something. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, maybe just bring the comic book. Yeah, it's got to feel like natural, and some of the stuff through here feels really natural with the comic book, when the mom lifts it up. But some of the other stuff feels a little, I don't know. I think we can just make it a little more casual and stuff here. Especially like she pulls back here, and I really want the emphasis to be here on this hand and this whole expression. I like how she's back here and like leaning back. Like this is really nice, you know, this kind of idea, that kind of like line of action. And this feels natural. Maybe we can push it a little bit more, but it feels pretty natural how it is. So I'm not wholly against it. But this still puts the comic book, and also I might be reacting because it's just super bright red. So wherever it goes, it draws my eye. It draws a lot of attention. But we may, especially once we get into acting stuff, think about like where we want the comic book to be held. You know, how you're doing it here, it doesn't draw my eye, and it actually, you know, there's ways we can use it to kind of support that we want, like these lines. You know, here it like draws us to where your head is, all those like classic composition tricks where you have converging lines and stuff like that. So maybe it'll be fine. I know this isn't the final comic book. Maybe it's not even the final size. It actually kind of looks oversized to read to me as a comic book. It looks more like a large magazine, like Rolling Stone or something. I feel like if it were a comic book, you know, just seeing this in your hand in your reference, you get a feel that it's like a little bit smaller than what this stand-in model is here. So maybe that's a good thing to do, is scale it down now and all that, you know. And then, you know, possibly we can find finger poses that have a little bit more appeal. Like maybe it's okay to have these be like flat and together, or maybe 3 of them are together and we just get, that's a terrible color for me to be drawing on top of this red comic book. But maybe 3 of them are kind of together and then we just have 1 out, just kind of like simplifying it in a way. You know, it's not a hand pose that's going to have to change like throughout the piece at all. Something nice we may be able to do for this hand pose too is like see how you have this nice implied tension here on your fingers. Maybe we can do that here with the hand pose, but kind of like getting this kind of relationship between the fingers and like the paddle portion of the hand is to get kind of like show that she's kind of pressing down a little bit on her chest. I think that's just a natural part of the gesture, is to kind of like press down. And it would be nice to, I don't know, if we can see this thumb and make it feel realistic and believable. But these are like tiny little nitpicky nose pose tweaks. But overall, I think that you're making really great progress here. And I would just keep putting in like golden poses and breakdowns and keep going, you know. I don't think I have a ton more than that. Oh man, we're already at 17 minutes and I did the drawings in advance. What the heck? Someday I'll learn how to be brief. But yeah, maybe we want to watch, you know, like, yeah, anyways, I'm going to leave it there. That's probably plenty for you to chew on for next week. But great stuff. Keep going. And I think that, like, you know, you're headed in a good spot. I looked at your thing as far as like which stuff to work on next. So I'm informed, so maybe we can have a discussion about that the next time we meet. All right? Yeah, have a good week. Talk to you later.